Hey, kids, it's the Matt Murphy Radio Show underway for another day. Good afternoon. May I be the first to say it's 12:05. Hello, how are you? Welcome in. It's episode 506 of the proceedings today from noon until 3 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We'll make way for Brian Wilson at 3 o'clock. Until then, it's you, it's me, it's Bell K. McMorey will be along in just a couple of moments after he takes a little lunch break. It's February the 6th. It's a Tuesday edition on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Allow me, if you will, to get the pleasantries out of the way. We'll get things lumbering under our own weight. You can find us in a lot of different places. You can find us, obviously, on the radio dial, 99.7 FM. We are on just about any internet streaming platform of your choosing. If you stream news or talk or music or information anywhere, you can stream us there, and you're invited to do so by dialing us up at Supertalk 99.7 WTN. You can also watch us on Supertalk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. That is up and running. F&M Bank chat line, always up and running. While they're unmonitored a lot of the time, so if you see things that, upset your feelings, well, I'm sorry for that, but just move along, and the trolls will move along with you. But episode 506 is available for you at Supertalk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and it is entitled by Bell K on a daily basis. And today's title is
Matt Murphy Show. Let's see if someone gets tossed today. Libertarian lunch, noon to 3. No food, just bills.
I doubt it, because we have some very special guests, both of which I'm excited to talk about. There was a going on, a rally happening today that we talked about yesterday with Robbie Starbuck at the State House Capitol, and it was brought to you by Americans for Prosperity. And apparently there were protests during this State House rally. The rally, I believe, was specifically designed to promote the concepts of school choice and to promote some of the conversational points regarding school choice brought up by the governor last evening in his State of the State address. We will speak with Corey DeAngelis, who spoke at the rally, in our studio at 1 o'clock this afternoon. We'll find out if the protests were disruptive. There were obviously some protests last night during the governor's address. We'll talk about that more coming up as well. And at 12:35 today, this one probably more likely than the former, probably more likely than the latter, Bell, to end up in a dismissal. Afton B, who is a person that I do not know. Afton B is a politician. She won a special election, I guess it was, last year after the death of five-term state representative Bill Beck, who was a Democrat in the Nashville area. Ben campaigned in a special election for the Tennessee House of Representatives for the 51st District and won. And she is a freshman representative. She's a Democrat, and she will join us in studio at 12:35 this afternoon to talk about her proposal to eliminate grocery taxes in the state of Tennessee. I'm curious. I'm all about lower taxation. I'm all about as little taxation as possible. I'm all about smaller government. And if that's what she's proposing, then, if it's free, I'll take 3.
Nothing that you eat, drink, breathe, or look at should be taxed.
Mm-hmm.
Or think about.
Look at?
Yeah.
Like a property?
Sure. Why not?
Okay, sure. I can look at my paycheck. That should be taxed?
That should not be taxed. None of that should be taxed.
Well, I'm all about a consumption tax. So we'll find out from Afton what she has in store for the state legislature with her proposal that we eliminate grocery taxes. With that said, we'd love to hear from you, 615-737-9986. Always an opportunity for you to speak truth to power on the radio show, 615-737-9986. I admit that I've been a little out of pocket over the last several hours, and I will explain why. I'm a little discombobulated, and frankly, I'm not expecting a lot from this radio show between now and 2 o'clock, because I'll explain why at 2 o'clock. But I don't understand. We're a family, so I try to be as open as possible with you. I don't want to tell you why I might be a bit unfocused until 2 o'clock, because if I tell you now, it's going to completely blow up the show.
Did you get a new job?
I did not get a new job.
Just curious.
Although I'm available, Matt at Murphy Show. Oh, wait. I probably shouldn't say that. No, I'm just kidding. I love where I work. I love what I do. Every day's a holiday. Every day is a holiday on the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Toby Keith died.
Yeah, that sucks.
That one
man.
stings.
Yeah.
I don't 62 is not old. 62 at one time in my life, I suppose, was old. I don't know if it's the fact that I'm getting older or people are living longer or what. I think it's a combination of both. But regardless, 62 has never been the age that you were supposed to die, and Toby Keith has passed away at the age of 62. Obviously, several years ago, I believe it was in 2022, it was announced that Toby Keith had stomach cancer. He battled and fought against that stomach cancer and fought to save his life and ultimately succumbed to the stomach cancer in the early morning hours of or I guess it was the evening hours last night, and it was announced this morning that he had passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 62. What an incredible musical icon. A rather controversial figure in his stand for him. He shouldn't have been controversial, but he was. He became controversial somehow. Regardless, he is no longer with us, and he will be sorely missed. What a great favorite Toby Keith song. I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, we could do that. I mean, I'm partial to Weed with Willie. I discovered it by...
Why wouldn't you be?
I mean, why wouldn't I be? I discovered it by accident. It was just a throwaway cut that he recorded in Huntsville, Alabama. I mean, not a throwaway cut. Don't get me wrong. It was never released. It was an album cut, I should call it. Never released, but an absolute iconic song.
Can you imagine being his record rep and walking into a program director going, "Hey, got the new Toby Keith. What's it called? Weed with Willie."
A great song.
No, thank you.
In the fetal position with drool on our chin, we broke down and smoked weed with Willie again. What a fabulous song. Tony writes in and says, "Thank you. I'm 62 and I don't feel elderly." Well, you're not elderly, Tony. You're only as old as you feel. So just keep a chin up on that. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee had his 6th State of the State address yesterday, outlining his vision for Tennessee for the next year and for the remainder of the administration. After highlighting the shared history and heritage of Tennesseans and the economic position of Tennessee, the governor highlighted school choice, AI, and streamlined regulatory framework among his goals for 2024. I'll give you some more of what the governor had to say regarding his address to the state coming up in just a couple of minutes. Right now, Pamela Furr is on site at the State House, it's my understanding, and we were talking earlier about some of the protests occurring at the Americans for Prosperity event. Hello, Pamela.
Well, hello, Matt Murphy. It's calmed down just a little bit, so that's the good news. It was quite lively there for a minute.
Well, tell us a little about what's going down. So you guys started your event at about 10 o'clock this morning. Is that right?
Yeah, so people started arriving around 10, and I got a notification actually from Corey DeAngelis, who's going to be with you a little later on the show, but I got a notification saying that protesters had been activated from a particular group, and they were going to show up here. And sure enough, I mean, as we kind of got started, we had started around 11 o'clock. Sure enough, there was a gang of about 10, they say they're mothers, who had their signs saying, "We want to fund public schools." And so for a minute there, I mean, it was quite the shout-off between the two groups. We have probably about, 100 people here. And that group, again, it was about 10 or 15, but they were pretty loud. And again, I respect their right to protest, but it just didn't make any sense just yelling at people. No one's mind is going to be changed as you're yelling at people. So anyway, it was interesting. I have to wonder if they were the same people who were in the gallery or whatever you call it, gallery,
gallery,
with the governor yesterday, because they were quite loud and saying some of the same things. So I'm not so sure they weren't the same people.
What do you feel like their goal was to shut your rally down?
Yes, that's what I think. And to get on camera. I mean, there were several news cameras out here anyway. But I got to tell you, when you have Corey on, I'm going to call him the protest whisperer, because he actually stood out there with those protesters and started having a conversation with them. And when he started talking to them just directly, not to the whole group, just to the 10 or 15, they started to calm down. And he stayed with them and answered their questions, 10, 15 minutes, and then they left. So I would call him the protester whisperer.
Well, good for him. No, I mean, obviously, we are excited to have Corey on the show.
Sure.
He is a nationwide advocate. He promotes the concept of freedom of choice when it comes to parental rights and our schooling. And I'm interested in what he has to say, and I'm interested in what he thinks about the proposals that Bill Lee kind of laid out. And no specifics last evening, but some general proposal regarding a scholarship plan. Well, how have the lawmakers received AFP on the Hill beyond these protests that happened?
Sure.
It's my understanding that you guys were kind of milling about and going in to speak with specific lawmakers and whatnot.
Sure. Yeah. So we're having lunch right at this moment. That's why I'm able to talk to you. Senator Jack Johnson's going to speak to this group here in a few minutes. And as you know, he's all for school choice. He's talked about that before. And then we're breaking off into groups because the people that are here from AFP are from all over the state. So we have people from Knoxville. We have people from the Tri-Cities. We have people from Jackson, Tennessee, and Memphis, and Chattanooga. And then, of course, here in Middle Tennessee, mothers who have their children here with them. So we're going to break off into groups and talk to specific lawmakers who are in the districts of the people that are being represented today. In fact, I have a couple of meetings set up today as well, including Scott Sapicki, who you know real well. But the point is they get to hear specifics and get to hear questions from actual moms and fathers who either want to homeschool or send their kid to a different school, but they're locked into where they are and they can't do that. And so they want to see their children thrive. And right now, some of these parents say their kids are not doing well in public school.
Well, as I've been stating for some time now, my goal, while I have no children, is to provide every parent the opportunity to have every tool possible available to them in order to get the best education for their children that they can possibly imagine. That's my goal.
Right.
And if that, I anxiously await the real bill. We know that it's not the real bill that's currently sitting in the placeholder, but I look forward to the real.
Rumors that it'll be this week. So let's cross our fingers and hope that we get it. Yeah.
All right. Well, be safe over there.
Thank you, my friend.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
Appreciate you checking in. There's Pamela Furr checking in with us for a few moments, live from the Tennessee State Capitol as a rally was occurring with the Americans for Prosperity group, amongst other individuals, organizing in favor of the possibility of a scholarship program that would prevent anyone from not being able to make free choices about where they want to send their kids to school based on financial liability or financial concerns. We will speak more on that when we welcome Afton B to the program. We'll ask her thoughts on it, although we primarily have her on to talk about taxation and her desire to eliminate grocery taxes from the citizens of the state of Tennessee, and we'll do that coming up in just a couple of minutes. Some of the other storylines going on right now, obviously there continues to be a storyline involving immigration in the southern border and the southern border security situation that revolves, it affects all of us. It's not just a matter of border states. It's a matter of everyone being affected by this by now. The governor announcing that he is giving the opportunity for more volunteers from the Tennessee National Guard to go down to the southern border to assist Greg Abbott and others in their effort to stop the illegal border crossings that are going on. The Democrats, for their part, say, hey, all you've got to do is pass this legislation, which is a dog of a bill. It's about 300 pages long. It's bad. I noticed that even local media is joining in on this, harping on the fact that Marsha Blackburn. Well, I saw this, and I'm going to name names. It was ABC. It was Channel 2. What's his name? Bob Mueller. It was Bob Mueller and whoever his co-host was, ranting about Marsha Blackburn and Bill Haggerty claim that they want to stop the flood of illegal immigration. However, they're against this legislation. And the insinuation, and I don't have the actual language, so I don't want to say that they actually said it, but certainly the insinuation was, why would you be against this legislation if you want to shut down the southern border? Well, simply put, because this legislation in no way shuts down the southern border. All you have to do is read it. You don't have to believe some dunderhead on the radio. Just read the legislation. The legislation legalizes the crossing of 1.825 million individuals into this country that would currently be illegal. So if you think the problem is we don't have enough people coming into the country, then by all means, maybe this bill is for you. But if you think maybe we should shut the border down and assess what we have going on in the United States of America right now, and what our pro-America needs might be right now and in the future, and then assess what our immigration processes should be after that, then I don't think this bill's for you. And oh, by the way, all these media outlets that are promoting the fact that there's a bill, a bipartisan piece of legislation that is before in the halls of Congress, there was another immigration bill in line before this one. It's called SB number 2. The House of Representatives, all of these advocates that are on social media, all of these advocates that are on our televisions claiming that, well, the Republicans have a bill right there before them. The Democrats have had a bill before them for 8 months, and they've done nothing with it. The Republicans in the House of Representatives passed HB 2 8 months ago, and it's been sitting in the Senate ever since, and Chuck Schumer refuses to do anything with it. If I were advising conservatives in Washington, D.C., and there are like 4 of them, if I were advising anyone with regard to how you package what is to come next, my advice would be we will consider whatever legislation Chuck Schumer and his ilk have come up with in the Senate as soon as the Senate takes up a debate on and votes on Senate Bill number 2, which was passed by the House 8 months ago. When we have that debate and we have that vote, we're welcome to debate and to talk about whatever other legislation you want to talk about regarding the southern border. But until then, we're not debating anything. This bill's been sitting there waiting on Democrats, and Democrats have refused to do anything with it. So if they want to do anything with regard to immigration, they need to take up the bill that's been sitting in the hopper for the last 8 months, and that's SB number 2, before we consider any other legislation. Hold on, I have to sneeze. Pardon me. Got to turn my mic off, too. All right, 21 minutes after the hour. Coming up in a couple of minutes, we'll welcome Representative Afton B to the show. We'll get her in here to talk about some of the goings-on. And last night, find out what she thought about being in the room as the governor delivered his State of the State address. That's next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I often talk to my good friend Steve Abramowitz with the Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast. The Tennessean has offered this, that he is a conservative advocacy podcast. I think he's much more than that, as a matter of fact. While he certainly is a conservative and he offers a unique perspective and a unique point of view, he also has incredible guests to discuss art, authors, culture, entertainment, sports. I mean, it's much, much more than just politics, but they talk a lot about politics as well. They're frequently the number one show on politics on Podomatic. You can find them on Deezer, iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, all of your favorite podcast apps, and plus they are on Rumble Video. Mill Creek View and the Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast. You can also once a month see me in my segment, Murphy's Law, on Mill Creek View. Steve is the CEO and editor-in-chief of the Mill Creek View newspaper as well, and you're invited to be a part of that by going to mcview.us. Right there on that page, you can find every podcast that they've done with Mill Creek View, and there are a lot of good ones, too many to mention, including yours truly, Matt Murphy. mcview.us, that's mcview.us, Steve Abramowitz, and Mill Creek View, Tennessee. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. Let me talk to the gentleman in the audience. Well, I always say that, but I shouldn't, because you ladies in the audience, if you've noticed that the fella in your life has gotten lower energy over the last several months or years, perhaps it's in the gym, perhaps it's in the yard work, perhaps it's in your intimacy. Whatever the reason, I have a place for you to go, and it's Tennessee Men's Clinic, because they can assist you. They are an energy facility, meaning while they focus on certain aspects of a loss of energetic lifestyle or a loss of vitality, it is an overall holistic look at your health. They're going to check some of those numbers, gentlemen, that you don't like to check. And I understand the way you are when it comes to your health. I understand the way you are when it comes to going to the doctor, because I'm exactly right there with you. But you owe it to yourself to go to Tennessee Men's Clinic. Go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com to find out more information. I encourage you to go over to the website and do a little research on your own. TennesseeMen'sClinic.com, and then make the call. 2 locations to serve you. One's been in Midtown since 2014, 10 years now. The other opened last year in Cool Springs. The phone number is 615-208-9090. 208-9090 for our friends at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. Okay, this one, it's really good. It's really good. This was done shocking y'all, right? I want to say that. Maybe I could be wrong. I don't know. Toby Keith lost at the age of 62. The country music world and really entertainment industry is mourning the loss of Toby Keith, who was diagnosed with stomach cancer a couple of years ago. He was seen recently at an awards presentation. You said you saw him on a podcast. Is that right?
Yeah.
It was pretty obvious that he was having a difficult time with it. And
yeah, he had withered away, and he
lost
was
so
always
much
a big
weight.
guy, but he was just kind of wasting.
Yeah, 62 years of age, announced this morning by his folks over on his social media platforms. It's an exciting opportunity for us to speak to somebody brand new, fresh to the Tennessee House of Representatives, won a special election last year. Her name is Afton B. I imagine that she has a count, the number of times that she's been asked about her first name. I'm going to add to that count as we introduce her to the radio program, both on the talk side and the television side. Hello, how are you?
Hi, happy to be here.
It's exciting to have you here. You're just a fountain of energy. I can tell.
I try.
This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yes.
We'll have a good time. Tell me how in the world you got into the world of politics.
So I moved back to Tennessee. I grew up in East Tennessee, and I moved back after President Trump was elected, and became a community organizer, organizing for Medicaid expansion across the state as rural hospitals were closing.
All right. You grew up in Knoxville? Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. And so you moved here and you were involved and active, and then when we lost one of our representatives here in Nashville, you saw that as an opportunity to present yourself for public service.
That's right. Yeah, I've been on one side and now I'm on the other side.
What does that mean? You've been the activist side versus the representative side.
Yep.
How's it been in the House of Representatives?
It's been drinking like a fire hose, but I'm really grateful. I've had a lot of wonderful mentors who've been providing me with, how to do things, how to run bills. It's been revelatory. Yeah.
What has been well, let me ask you this. It has to be a little interesting in as much as you're in the distinct minority. But that's all obviously, you've only been there several months. That's all that you've known. How has that been? Has it been cordial? Have people been good to you?
They have. A lot of my Republican colleagues have been very respectful. I haven't felt infantilized at all. And in fact, a few of them have taken me under their wing to make sure that I can actually pass a bill this session.
I was curious. Well, I was curious the blowback that you got when you had an opportunity to open a day of the session. I thought it was celebrating the spirit of the concept of bringing all together to present, the day's session in the right way, and that's the opening prayer. Were you surprised at the reaction that you got to that?
No, but I'm grateful the moment happened. I followed regular procedure, as do all of my colleagues every day, and I was excited to have the opportunity to invite my constituent to do that. Was
it important to you did you identify that clergy member specifically because of her transgenderism?
No, she's very vocal. She's a very vocal constituent, and she had come in for an office meeting and said, I'm really interested in being chaplain of the day. Would you be willing to submit my name? And I said, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. And I thought everything was entirely appropriate about it. And I was respectful of the fact that the Republicans were respectful of the moment. Did you feel the same way in the body?
Well, I would say there were a third of the members in their seats when the prayer commenced, but for the most part, a few Republican colleagues reached behind and said, I'm glad. Thanks for doing that.
Well, it's what caused, and the reason I bring it up, I was reading the article, and then I did a little further research, and I saw that you were interested in eliminating grocery taxes, and I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to have Afton Ben on. We'll take a short break,
okay,
and we'll get into some of the legislation that's important to you this session, okay?
Thank you.
All right, Afton Ben is with us. We'll be back in a moment and continue the conversation on the Matt Murphy Show. It's the Libertarian Lunch on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, welcoming Afton Ben to the show. All right, so, I mean, may I ask, it is a rather unique first name.
It is, yeah. I get asked a lot. So it actually comes from a Robert Burns poem, Flow Gently, Sweet Afton.
Okay, well, there you go.
There you go. For those literary fans out there.
As easy as it comes. Talk to me about your focus as you begin your public service in the legislature. What have you gravitated to in terms of what you want to focus on?
Well, I know your audience members love identity politics, but I'm the youngest serving woman in the Tennessee House, the only woman representing Nashville, and the first woman to represent my district in over 50 years. So ensuring the safety and belonging of women and making sure that they feel safe as they rear and bear children.
See, I don't see sex and gender. Oh. Isn't that what that's the way I'm supposed to?
I mean, it depends. It depends, but I'm a protected class, so yeah. But in terms of my legislative portfolio this year, it's really all about corporate accountability in the state because we have none.
What do you mean when you say that?
So we give out hundreds of millions of dollars of subsidies to mega corporations in the state of Tennessee, and they're not paying what they owe in state taxes.
Mm-hmm. So how do you correct what you perceive as this error?
Well, the first issue is that we don't know what corporations are currently paying. And so there was a bill that Senator Heidi Campbell sponsored last session that would ensure corporations inform what they pay in taxes so that we know a baseline. And then I have a bill to eliminate the grocery tax, which is why you brought me on today.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the Tennessee working families should be paying a sales tax on groceries. It's regressive. And I think we should go after corporations to pay what they owe.
So are you suggesting? Are you in a positive position with regard to where we are with no income tax? In other words, do you support the idea that the state does not tax individuals on their income?
I look at it as a non-starter, so I'm not here to argue about the state income tax.
To debate it.
Yeah, because it's a non-negotiable in the state.
Right.
I mean,
sure.
If anyone lived through the state income tax,
I didn't, but I, we're well aware that that's been debated and it's kind of been a settled matter for some time.
Yeah.
So, whatever your position might be on that, you recognize that it's not going anywhere. So why spin your wheels in mud?
Exactly. And for your listeners, it's important to note that almost 60% of our budget comes from a sales tax and tons of sales taxes, actually. I like to say Tennessee is 13 sales taxes in a trench coat. But
I love somebody that rim shots their rim shot. She rim shot herself. She did it herself. She doesn't need you, Belle. Anyway.
Yes. So 60% of our budget derives from sales taxes, and it's an extremely aggressive way in which states can tax. So a lot of I think it's my Republican colleagues probably find it comedic that, this blonde young woman is trying to overhaul Tennessee's tax code, but yet here I am.
So you want to eliminate taxes on all grocery items?
Correct.
Okay. Tell me how we do that.
So it depends on who you ask, but the way that my bill will pay for it. So it's about $780 to $1 billion worth of revenue that we would lose if we eliminated the grocery tax. And what my bill does differently is that it enforces two mechanisms to close corporate loopholes. So for your listeners, say Amazon or FedEx, right? They have revenues all over the globe. And one way we would pay for eliminating the grocery tax is by calculating how much revenue they are making globally and then taxing that portion in Tennessee. And so it's a really high number, probably $500 to $700 million. And then your listeners probably won't like this, but we don't have a corporate minimum tax. And so the other way to pay for it is through what is called a business enterprise tax. I know this is super wonky, but it's really important. It's an economically neutral tax that ensures businesses pay what they owe in taxes.
So the premise of what you want to do to repair the hole created by the elimination of the grocery tax is to tax corporations.
Not to tax them, but to close corporate loopholes.
Right. But it isn't the premise, and I'm certain that you've had these conversations in the past, but isn't that premise based on the idea that corporations actually pay taxes?
Exactly. And they're not, especially in Tennessee.
Well, corporations never pay taxes.
Right, but the system is set up, and so a lot of states, the progressive...
Well, my suggestion is that if you further tax corporations in the state, right? So let's say we eliminate the grocery tax, and then you begin to tax the businesses that provide the goods and the services that we're buying in the grocery store. Let's say just groceries, for example. How are those businesses going to absorb the additional cost of doing business based on Afton B's proposal that they pay more money in taxes? How do you think they're going to react to that?
So have you heard of greedflation?
No.
Okay. So greedflation is where corporations increase the price on goods, and it's not necessarily the amount that the consumer is paying. So right now, corporations, they're making record profits, and we're really honing in and trying to tax that portion of the record profits. And they wouldn't raise consumer prices. They're already doing that. They're already at an all-time high. It's just rerouting the money that they're not owing back into the state of Tennessee.
So you're suggesting that if you add a line item on a business's expense report, I'm just trying to keep it simple. If you add additional cost to doing business, that they're not going to pass that cost to the consumer?
Once again, the bill looks at, we don't even have that information right now. So the first step would be ensuring that we know what corporations are paying in terms of taxes and their line items, because we just don't know. And once we know, we'll be able to make a fair assessment as to how much they actually owe.
Well, let's back up. Let's not talk about the specifics of your legislation. How do you think corporations pay their tax burden?
Through the price of, inflating the price of consumer goods.
So ultimately, who pays for that?
We do.
The consumer.
Right.
Very good. We're doing good so far.
Yeah.
So if you increase the cost of a corporation doing business in the state of Tennessee, they're going to pass that increased cost on to whom?
But we're not increasing the cost of doing business.
If you increase their tax burden, businesses look at taxes as a cost of doing business. If you increase their tax burden, they look at that as a cost of doing business.
So that's one way to do business, but what they could also do is evaluate how much profit they have, and instead of, increase profit to their stakeholders and their board members, that they reroute that money that they would pay for those taxes.
What's the average profit margin of a business in the state of Tennessee?
That's a great question. I'll get back to you.
But don't you think you should? I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to pigeonhole you. I'm not trying to have even an adversarial conversation. I'm just curious your thought process on this, because in order to know if you're right, if businesses are not in the business of making profits for their shareholders or for their stakeholders, if they just want to give back to the community in the way that you suggest, then wouldn't you need to know what their profit margins are to know if they are going to be able to do that at all?
So let me give you an example. So Turnip Truck, a local grocery that a lot of us use, they generate about almost $50 million worth of revenue. Turnip Truck pays more in taxes than Amazon or FedEx in the state of Tennessee. So our tax code...
Actual dollars or percentage?
Percentage.
Okay, sure.
So our tax code discriminates against hardworking Tennessee businesses that pay their 30 to 40% of taxes, right? Instead, mega corporations, multinational corporations that have been given subsidies in the state, like Amazon or FedEx, are not paying those taxes. So I challenge all your listeners to really think about how much they are paying in taxes, especially if they own a small business. And guess what? It's not fair that they're spending more than these multinational corporations that are getting money from us. So
I would agree with you. I want the mom and pops to be treated fairly in comparison to the big boys. Are you comparing apples to apples? You mentioned that you want to tax them on all their profits. So you want to tax them on profits that they make exterior to the state?
So the first part, great question. So the half of how I pay to eliminate the grocery tax is to identify the multinational companies that are doing business in the state of Tennessee and to tax them on the revenue generated in Tennessee. Now where Tennessee businesses come in is the second part, which is the business enterprise tax. And so, up to a certain threshold, it's a tax that is it's very wonky.
I dig it. I dig it. I think the devil's always in the details.
That's right.
And it's the reason I asked. So you want to tax the business that they're doing in the state, but a portion of this would be made up by taxing business that they do outside of the state?
for multinational corporations. And then for Tennessee businesses, we would institute a business enterprise tax.
I don't understand how that's Tennessee's business.
So I'm
just confused.
Yeah, I'm divorcing in-state Tennessee businesses like Turnip Truck, right? It's a franchise in Davidson County. They're not operating out of state versus Amazon or FedEx or Google, which is a or international corporation.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, what do you mean when you say you're divorcing them?
I'm divorcing them in terms of how we would pay for it. So one is ensuring that multinational corporations pay what they owe in taxes. And the second part is instituting this business enterprise tax, which is a consumer value tax. But it's,
What do the multinational corporations, as you describe them, what do they pay now?
We don't know. We don't know because we don't have any tax transparency in the state.
But Afton, you described it at the beginning is that they're taking advantage of tax loopholes.
Correct.
So as to not pay their fair share.
Correct.
But you don't know what they pay.
We know from national studies that they're not paying their taxes. And we know that the money that they're being given is not what is being returned to our communities.
So I kind of go back to what are these corporations, Amazon and FedEx, you brought them up 3 separate occasions. What do they pay in the state of Tennessee now? You don't know?
We don't know. And so that's a piece of legislation.
Pardon me, how do you know they're not paying their fair share if you don't know what they pay?
Because we know that they're not, there's no reporting to indicate what they're paying in taxes.
Then they could be paying their fair share.
But they're not.
How do you know?
Because of
This seems very silly. I mean, the way that, doesn't that feel very silly?
Well, I think
You're admitting that you don't know what they pay in taxes in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah.
But you're making an assumption they're not paying their fair share and they need to pay more.
Because people
You're trying to vilify big corporations.
Mm-hmm.
You admitted that corporations pass their taxes on to consumers. So you know that the consumer is going to get hurt on the back end.
That's one way of doing business. They could also decide that they're going to rake in the record profits and pay their CEO
but you
less to make up.
You don't know what their profit margins are. What if their profit margins prevent them? I mean, their shareholders have a stake in all of this too. Mm-hmm. What if their profit margins prevent them from having the ability to just be a good autonomous source of good feelings and good tidings, and they don't want to pass that along? They're going to absorb that cost. What if they can't absorb that cost?
I think you're referencing a certain subset of businesses, but what we're looking at are businesses that are reporting record high profits.
So
nationally.
So you're targeting businesses that are most successful.
I'm targeting businesces that have zero accountability in the state.
Do you feel like I'm being unfair right now?
No, not at all.
Okay, very good. I just want to make sure. I just don't understand. I don't understand how you assume that these businesses are not currently doing what they are supposed to do in the state of Tennessee without having the data. I just and maybe it's early enough in the process. I want to be nice to you. Maybe it's early enough in the process where you're still trying to gather all this information.
There are centers and institutes at the national level that do a lot of research and reporting and spend a lot of money on this, and they are saying that these corporations are not paying taxes.
Yeah, but I don't have them on. I have you on, and you're the one that's proposing an elimination of the grocery tax.
That's true. That's true.
Which I'm all for, by the way. I'm not against necessarily that. I just need to know how we're going to pay for it or how we're going to absorb it. And it seems to me that we're just going to pass the cost back. So I'm very much a believer that corporations do not pay taxes. That corporations
they should, or I'm sorry,
they don't.
Yeah, they don't.
It doesn't matter what you charge.
Do you have data to back that up?
It doesn't matter what you charge. No, well, I have common sense to back that up. See, because a business utilizes, a cost ledger, and they have incomes and they have outcomes. Right. Their profits, they have their outcomes, and they have their net revenue. And if their cost of doing business goes up, wherever that comes from. If it's the cost of materials, if it's the cost of taxation, whatever it might be, they have 2 choices to make. They can either absorb that cost
and increase the price, or
they can absorb the cost and cut their margins.
That's right.
But before you begin passing legislation suggesting that big corporations should cut their margins in the state of Tennessee, I think we might want to know what those margins are. That's all.
And I would love for anyone in the legislature to sponsor a bill so that we do have data transparency when it comes to taxation.
I mean, do they not file with the state?
No, there's no.
Well, I'm confused then. I mean, they don't do corporations currently pay any taxes in the state for doing business?
Some.
Do we know how much those are?
I mean,
Afton, I feel like I don't know. I don't want to suggest that. Are we putting the cart before the horse on this?
I don't think so. I mean, for me, I do believe in eliminating the grocery tax. I think we need tax reform in this state. A sales tax-based tax system is incredibly regressive for consumers. So 60% of our budget comes from sales taxes. In other states, that's not the case. And unfortunately...
Well, other states have income taxes.
Right.
And states that don't have income taxes tend to lean on property, sales, or a combination of the two.
Right, but
to make up the difference.
But a state like Tennessee that has compounded sales tax, it affects the poorest residents of the state.
Are you concerned that some businesses would tell Tennessee to just go pound sand?
I don't think so, because I think people want to do business here. I think people want to live here. They want to be comfortable. But we have zero corporate accountability in this state. Let me give your listeners an example.
Yeah, sure.
Smile Direct. I don't know if you've
Smile Direct Club, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. So it was a company that came to Tennessee and said, if you give us money, we'll bring 2,000 jobs, et cetera. Turns out they filed for bankruptcy and we're on the hook for about $6 million. So I think corporate accountability extends to, we want to know what you pay in taxes. We want to know how much you're giving back to our communities. And we want to know if we give you money, what the benefits are of that. And I think that's just smart business.
I agree. I think that there's far too many government handouts that go to bigger businesses to the detriment of some of the smaller businesses that in some cases are competing against those bigger businesses. I'm one of the guys that was on radio in 2008 who said that nothing should be too big to fail in the United States of America when the banks were called too big to fail under the final year of the Bush administration and into the Obama administration. They gave them all these handouts. I was against it. I'm against corporate welfare. And so if you're tackling corporate welfare, I'm your huckleberry on that. I just here's what I would love. I would love for you to continue to research this. I don't want to dissuade you in eliminating the grocery taxes, because if we can do that and make it somehow revenue neutral, then I'm willing to listen. But I'm also interested in finding out some of this data that you're seeking to discover, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'd love to come back. I want to reiterate that we're a high tax state for families. We're a low tax state for corporations. And all I want to do is shift that tax burden from mega national corporations or shift from the Tennessee working families to those corporations.
I had promised myself that I was going to ask you about school choice, and we're out of time. So will you come back and we can talk school choice? I would love to have you on. Again,
I'm more of a tax reform girl.
I get it. Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your concepts with us, and we'll do it again soon.
Sounds good.
There's Afton Ben. We'll be back in just a moment. 54 after the hour on Super Talk. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. Let me tell you my experience with Dr. Poss and the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solutions Center. I did not know. I was feeling tired during the day, and I knew that I snored. My wife told me as much. And so I decided to put my money where my mouth was and call Dr. Stephen Poss, the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solutions Center, and to work it to see if I perhaps was a candidate for their incredible mouth appliance that would assist with mild to moderate sleep apnea. Well, I've done my sleep test. I sent it back to Dr. Poss, and he just communicated with me today and said, hey, we've got your results. I want to talk to you about those results, and next steps are in order. Look, this is a great alternative. It's a mouth appliance. It's a great alternative to people who are intolerant for the CPAP machines. And I don't believe that I'm a candidate for that. I couldn't do it. I could not put the big clunky thing on my face, and I don't believe that I'm necessarily at that state with regard to sleep apnea. However, if you feel like you're not getting the sleep that you should, if you're waking up feeling tired or lethargic, maybe it's sleep apnea, and maybe you need to talk to the Dr. Poss folks and the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solutions Center. Go to drposs.com for the beginning of your journey, drposs.com, and find out how they can help. By the way, I should mention they're in major medical. They're the only office in the sound of my voice that is covered by BCBS, Aetna, Cigna, United Healthcare, and TRICARE for the military. So that's a big deal. drposs.com. That's drposs.com. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. United Structural Systems is your one-stop shop for all things foundation, repair, and waterproofing in your home in the state of Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, and Northern Alabama. Let's talk about it for a moment. USS has been in business since 1994. That is 30 years of satisfying customers just like you. 25,000 plus satisfied customers, and they're adding new numbers every single day. And in terms of what they do, it's simple. If you've noticed the signs, and if you don't know the signs, I'm going to give you a website, and I'm going to tell you the signs in a moment. So if you've noticed the cracks in your basement or your crawl space, if you've noticed a musty smell coming out of your basement or crawl space, these are signs. These are the easiest ones to notice of something going down with your foundation, and it will not stop. I promise you, this thing's not going to repair itself. You need to call the experts, call USS. When it comes to large home repairs, you cannot whistle past the graveyard. You need to deal with it because that's going to save you money in the long run. And I trust USS, United Structural Systems. They've been keeping homes stable and dry since 1994. So go online to USSTN.com. They have a list of signs that you can look for and make the call that so many others have made. 615-488-7855, 488-7855 for USS. All right, here we are, and here we go. It is the Matt Murphy Radio Show, hour number 2 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for Representative Afton B for stopping by. She was, I don't know, how would you describe that? I was in the midst of the conversation, Belle. How would you? I mean, I thought it was affable. It was friendly.
Well, I mean, she didn't get thrown out.
You need some Mike Viagra in there. You need some Mike Viagra.
I do, actually. Yeah. But, yeah, she didn't get thrown out, so I think I have to call her a win. Yeah.
That's a plus. Well, I haven't thrown anybody out today, so maybe my next guest is my opportunity.
Let's do it.
You're in for it, Corey.
Corey DeAngelis is joining us. Corey is a nationally known advocate to give parents the opportunity to have maximum amounts of tools in their toolbox to assist in their child's education. Am I putting that about right?
Absolutely. I fight to fund students, not systems.
There you go. Tell everybody about yourself. If they don't know you, they should be following you on all the social medias. You just spoke outside of the Tennessee State House to advance and to promote and to support the governor's legislation that would give parents more opportunity to choose where their kids go to school and the educational opportunities that their children have. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became the guy that you are, nationally known.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matt. I'm Corey DeAngelis. I'm a senior fellow at the American Federation for Children. We fight to fund students, not systems. It's what most people would refer to as school choice, allowing the funding to follow the child to the education provider that works best for them. That could be the public school. If you like your public school, you can keep your public school, but for real this time, unlike with your doctor. But if not, you can take that funding to a private school, a charter school, or home-based education option. I really got into this as a researcher at the University of Arkansas, where I did my PhD in education policy. So you can call me a doctor, but I'm not a real doctor. I'm more like a Jill Biden doctor. I couldn't help you with the important stuff, but I can help you with math. You got the zingers,
too. You should have had a rim shot, but Belle left the room.
My first study there actually looked at one of the longest-standing modern voucher programs in the country in Milwaukee. They started this in 1990. I had student-level data from the state evaluation of the program and followed those students until they were about 30 years of age, finding large reductions associated with school choice, reducing criminal activity later on in life. So I started to do a lot of academic research, looking at mostly non-test score outcomes, things like improving mental health, improving satisfaction for families, improving safety if you get a choice in your kid's education. And I also benefited from school choice myself. I went to government schools, all K through 12, so if I make any mistakes today, that's probably part of the reason. You can blame it on my fantastic government school education. But in high school, I went to something called a magnet school, which is a type of school choice, one of the more limited versions of school choice. It's still an institution run by the government, but they can have their admissions processes, they can have their standards, and I felt like that was a good opportunity for me. Other families should have educational opportunities too, and it shouldn't be limited to schools that are run by the government. You should be able to take your kids' education dollars to the provider that works best, whether it's public
limited
or private.
by your financial ability, which is what is so frustrating to me. based on the pushback that you get all the time nationwide and the pushback that we're getting here in the state of Tennessee. So when I announced that I was having you on, I want to get this question out of the way because I promised that I would ask it. The pushback that you get on social media is incredible. And I told you right before we came on air is that I liked you before I knew you because sometimes you like people based on the amount of enemies that they're collecting along their path of trying to get information out to the people.
Over the target.
Right. So all these liberals came out of the woodwork when Corey DeAngelis was coming on. Well, ask him about UNESCO. Ask him about UNESCO. Ask him about UNESCO. I'm asking you. I don't even know what it is. I'm asking you about UNESCO.
Yeah, someone found a profile of me on their website, the UNESCO, which I've never worked for them, never been paid by them. And even if I had shown up at one of their conferences or whatnot, I've never done any kind of association with them. If I was on the Teachers Union website, would you say, well, Corey's horrible because he debated a Teachers Union stooge at one of their conferences?
Right.
No, but look,
They want to claim that you somehow are associated with them.
I contacted them and had them remove me from their website. So this circulation is still going around of picture me on their website when I've never worked for them or taken any money from them. And even if I had, that's not an argument against school choice, but I haven't.
It's just an ad hominem
And it's
attack.
an ad hominem to try to silence people who support school choice coming from the same people who already oppose school choice. So it is a classic ad hominem, and it comes from a lot of the crowd that tries to say that this is an elaborate plot by the government to take over private schools too. Would you hear this from Gary Humble, who ran on school choice, for example? He runs Tennessee.
Yeah, he's attacking you from the right.
Yeah, well, I guess.
I mean,
are you really on the right if you're going against the Republican Party platform? And his opponent, Jack Johnson's actually championing the issue, who beat him in the primary, and now Gary Humble, being a sore loser, is stomping his feet, throwing a temper tantrum, and now all of a sudden decides he's against school choice and coming up with this elaborate conspiracy about how this is a way for the Democrats to put CRT into the private schools. If that's true, if all the Democrats really had this elaborate plot to do so, why do they all vote against it, Matt? Why do your guests from last week, Heidi Campbell, who supports school choice for her own kids but fight against it for everybody else, why does she vote against it over and over again if this is actually a plot by the Democrats?
Well, I've learned when it comes to Gary Humble specifically. I've never met Gary. I've invited him repeatedly on the show. He refuses to come on. He told me in a telephone conversation that he would not come on with me. Okay, that's fine. But I've learned, and people like Gary, you cannot slay imaginary conspiracy theories if you do not first create imaginary conspiracy theories. For example, Governor Bill Lee and the rest of the Republicans in the state of Tennessee were going to use a special session to pass red flag laws, according to Gary Humble. Never brought them up, never came up, was never a reality. But now he takes credit for slaying that imaginary dragon that he himself created.
Well,
Same thing with school choice.
And those fear-mongering about school choice, the burden of proof should be on them. We've had school choice in over 30 states now for over decades. And if we did find evidence of them controlling the private schools and injecting CRT into them, you'd think that evidence would have surfaced by now. The burden of proof should be on them. It doesn't exist. And in fact, the government can already regulate private and home education without school choice. They have. Historically, the authoritarians in Oregon outlawed private education in 1922. You had to send your kid to the government school. Was that because of school choice? No, it was because authoritarians wanted to control the minds of other people's children. Thankfully, in 1925, Pierce versus Society of Sisters, our Supreme Court famously ruled the child is not the mere creature of the state. Some people would be wise to remember those wise words, including Joe Biden, who thinks that kids belong to society.
So Humble, Gary and his ilk notwithstanding, there is, and I share the concern that some would use a state involvement in more of a state involvement in the private sector or in homeschooling as a way to get the proverbial camel nose under the tent. How do you, as you've watched these things play out nationwide, how do you fight back against that, and how would you advise the people of the state of Tennessee to be wary of it? I think the concern is legit, but obviously you've done this nationwide.
Yeah, look, Randy Weingarten's made this argument, the same AFT president who was in Ukraine after the nation's report card scores came out, the president of the teachers union who fought to keep the school closed. She's a far left socialist who wants to trap people in failing government-run schools. She's repeated the same argument about government controlling the private schools. Is she saying that because she's some libertarian, anti-government type? No, she's a socialist who wants to keep her gravy train going. If you're on Randy Weingarten's side and not my side and Governor Bill Lee's side, you're probably on the wrong side. But look, not all school choice bills are created equal, and the ones that we've seen being pushed recently are some of the best, which include anti-regulation language in the bill, such as if you accept the funding, you're not a government entity. If you accept the funding, you can't have the state control your curriculum, your creed, your admissions processes, your discipline policies, and so on.
So
and
there's
so forth.
language that you insert in the bill itself to make sure that it's clear what the state has the right to regulate and what it does not have the right to control.
Yeah, absolutely. So
it's all about the language of the bill.
It's very light touch where you can't spend the money on a big screen TV with the ESA. So it's it's reasonable, fraud type of kind of rules. But it's not,
are some of the criticisms out of Arizona fair? I mean, I've heard some criticisms that it didn't go far enough to limit the abilities for parents in how they spent their money.
So Arizona, they do have these anti-regulation specifications in the bill. So I think Arizona is one of the best school choice bills.
Okay.
And as far as, you'll see some lefty media, which is just an arm of the Democratic Party in so many places, they'll put out reports saying in places like Arizona, well, some parents did use the money for X, Y, or Z that wasn't education.
Right.
Well, they have annual audits to make sure that doesn't happen, and that's against the law. You can't spend it on big screen TVs.
In other words, those examples that we're hearing are against the very law, and they're going to be gone after.
Exactly.
As these things pop
You're not
up.
allowed to do that, and that it even comes up as evidence that they are keeping track of these things. And look, there's fraud that happens in the government school system. Are those same people going to bring that energy to the public sector? No, they're not going to say, oh, there was some fraud in this public school. We bet we might as well abolish all the public schools because some of them have fraud. I mean, that's using an outlier to dictate overall policy, and we shouldn't bring that energy to school choice, especially if they aren't bringing the energy against the status quo.
Yeah, the perfect, the enemy of the good kind
Exactly.
of thing. Yeah, sure. So I want to delve into
And
with you.
I want to hit one more thing on the whole the government overreach argument is that school choice can actually reduce the likelihood of overreach happening in at least three ways. One is the obvious change is that you have fewer kids being indoctrinated in government schools to like big government, thinking that big government's the solution to all their problems. If there's everyone going through that one-size-fits-all system, they're going to turn out to vote for more big government policy in the future. If you have an escape valve with school choice, you have more families going to schools that actually align with their values, and they might actually be even more supportive of the free market. Two, if politics is all about coalition building and organized interest fighting for what they want. Well, if you have more people using school choice, you have a bigger tent, a broader coalition to fight back against the authoritarians that want to regulate private and home education in the future. And then three, more people using school choice through ESAs that the governor is proposing is you have a bigger tent, you have a broader coalition, and it's also more of a mainstream concept. If more people are using it, it's not some icky thing, what the regulators would say that it is, that only a few people are doing in the corner. Now it's a more mainstream concept. The rest of society should be less likely to call to regulate it. So all of these things move in our direction for more freedom. You got to take the W when you can, or else you're going to get stuck with the L.
And I want to delve more into what Arizona has done, what you like about Arizona's legislation, and what you hear about what the particulars on Tennessee's bill will be. Before we do that, is the very things that you just noted, is this why we're seeing such screaming and howling from the left, that you're cracking into that monopoly that it's not a full-fledged monopoly in as much as you have private education opportunities, you have homeschool education, but that's so limited to people who can afford it. This opens it up to such a much more broad section of the population. I contend that it will give those concerned parents the tools that they need to make the best educational decisions for their children. And secondarily, I think it encourages more active participation by the parents. In other words, there's a lot of parents that have checked out because they believe, well, why bother? we're zoned here. We can't afford to do anything else. I'm out. If they see other parents taking advantage of those opportunities, you're going to encourage parents, even if they don't leave the school system, to participate more within the system. And I think this is why activists in favor of the teachers unions and activists just in favor of big government and the monopoly that public education has, I think that's why they're howling so loudly. I think that's why they interrupted the governor last night.
Yeah, I mean, they started crying and booing when the governor said that the parents should make the decisions, not the government. So these people really think that the kids belong to the government. They want to control the minds of other people's children in their institutions we call public schools, and they're kicking and screaming every step of the way because they know Tennessee is going to get the ball across the finish line this year. Governor Lee's pushing it. House and Senate leadership are pushing empowering parents with every option in front of them when it comes to their education. And the latest polling from Beacon Center found that 85% of Republican voters support school choice. They also asked about would you be more or less likely to vote for someone if they voted for school choice, and they found that 60% of Republican voters said that they'd be more likely to vote for their legislator if they voted for school choice. Only 4% of respondents said they'd be less likely to support a legislator who supported school choice.
I like to say often that I'm a simple man. I was publicly educated in the state of Georgia, so I don't know much. And so I try to keep things simple. And I've used the analogy quite often over the years that I've done this, that if I told you tomorrow that, Corey, the only place that you can go buy bread is one grocery store, and that's where you're going to buy your bread, and everyone around that grocery store, zoned for that grocery store, buys bread from that grocery store, do you think the quality of bread's going up or down?
They won't even have bread on the shelves. I mean, it'll be like socialist countries where you go to the grocery store and there's no food on the shelves. And if it is there, it's going to be expired and it's going to cause food poisoning.
Because what are you going to do? You're going to go to the other bread store? You don't have another bread store, right?
They have no incentive to do a better job, and the government doesn't do a good job at anything it runs. We shouldn't expect education to be any different. But what's interesting to me, you bring up the grocery stores, is that you have people on the left who vote against funding people directly to choose things that work best for their own families. They support it with everything else. You hear Democrats, they support food stamps, they support Pell Grants for higher education, for pre-K. I mean, you hear the main four-word talking point from the other side defending the status quo as they say, public funds, public schools. First of all, there's no such thing as public funds. They're taxpayer dollars that are extorted from us from the government. But two, the same people saying these things, they support public funds for private health care. They support public funds for private groceries. They support public funds for higher education and pre-K. Why not for K through 12 education? It's because the Democratic Party is basically owned by the teachers union at this point. Randy Weingarten, who we mentioned earlier, 99.97% of her campaign contributions in 2022 went to the Democrats. They're an arm of the Democratic
That's almost
Party.
100. It's almost that same.
If you do math at the public school, you probably figure out at some good ones that 99.97 rounds to 100.
Have to take a quick time out. 23 after the hour. Corey DeAngelis with us in studio talking about the possibility of school choice in the state of Tennessee. The governor proposed it last night. Let's see what's in the bill. We'll continue the discussion. Find out what is Arizona doing right. Is there anything Arizona doing wrong? We'll find out from Corey in just a moment on Super Talk.
Yeah.
Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. You know, I'm not blessed with good looks. I'm not blessed with, a skinny waistline. But I was blessed with a good head of hair. And I had the thumbs up given to me just recently from PAI. They are the hair people. They are WeGrowHair.com. PAI went in for a checkup just to make sure everything was as it should be, and they gave me an examination. It was awesome. Their facility is incredible in Brentwood. They said, man, you're A-okay. Although, just to make sure that you don't have a thinning situation down the road, as many men do at my age, we're going to have some treatments, and I'll tell you all about those treatments and what they entail moving forward. But if you know you have hair loss, if you see it in the sink, if you see it in the tub, I want to introduce you to the trademark procedure that gives you more hair in one procedure, saving you time and money. It's the PAI multi-unit hair grafting procedure, only available at PAI and We Grow Hair. Call them today. They've been around for 26 plus years. They understand what they are doing, and they have many different procedures and many different programs, if you will, available for you depending on your level of hair loss. WeGrowHair.com. See the amazing results online. This is the real deal, folks, and you can get a free private consultation by calling 615-376-6010. 376-6010 for We Grow Hair. Super Talk 99.7 WTN 128. I do want to talk about me. I want to talk about Corey DeAngelis as well. He's in town. He's in the state promoting the concepts of free choice in our schooling, our public education, and giving you the ability to look at the different options available to you in your neck of the woods. So tell me, we had Heidi on, as you, I know, are well aware, and thank you for getting the word out. You have a tremendous platform on social media, and you did a great service to us by getting the word out. And I think it's primarily just focused on, as it should be, what I would consider the hypocrisy of the left with regard to how they act versus how they tell you you're supposed to act.
Yeah, Matt, we gotta hire you full time just to do a show every day interviewing another school choice hypocrite. That was the best interview I've ever seen of someone pushing back against someone who exercised school choice for their own kids and then fights tooth and nail against it for other families having the same kind of opportunity, especially lower income families that can't afford to pay twice out of pocket and through the property tax.
Well, that's what's as frustrating as anything is that if you cut through it, the ultimate reason that she had the ability to make the choices that she made, whether it's her parents making choices for her or she making choices for her own family, was her financial ability to do so. The distinguishing factor between herself and many of the constituents that she serves is that they don't have that financial ability, and she wants to prevent an opportunity to remove that barrier amongst those people who want to see better educational outcomes for their children. That's the bottom
it's
line.
Pure elitism. You don't want your kids being around the kids that can't afford to go to your elite private schools. So I think that's part of the problem. But you had also pushed back and asked, what school you assigned to. She said Hillsborough Public School. Yeah. And you said, well, why not go go to that school. And she kind of just went around in circles about it, tried to say, well, I went to this other school, and tried to say, well, it's their community, it's a cultural thing.
You caught you actually, and I don't. You caught it, and I didn't catch it in real time. I was asking a lot of questions about why she made the decisions that she made and why she cannot see how others would like the opportunity to make some of those same decisions. And she said, well, for us, it was a cultural thing. And looking back on it, I wish I'd have noted it at the time, because I don't know what that means for Heidi Campbell. I don't want to act like I presume to know, but I can point to a couple of things. I mean, one would be economic ability to pay, which is going to exclude certain individuals from attending one of the most expensive private schools in the state of Tennessee, which is where she went and where she sends her kids. Secondarily, I mean, you just look at some basic demographics. I mean, she's the one that called it a cultural issue, and basic demographics indicate that I mean, there's a lot more cultural diversity at Hillsborough than there is at this private educational facility.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the point of us to point all of these things out isn't to say, well, you shouldn't have your private reasons to be able to choose a private school. We're not telling her you should not be able to choose a private school. We're just saying that's fine. Have those opportunities for your kid, but you shouldn't be able to tell everybody else that can't afford to do so they can't have $7,000 to make it more likely to be able to choose an opportunity for their kids. So the thing is, the Democrat position relies on hypocrisy for people who send their kids to private school, because, look, it's all about power. It's not about logic. They support funding students directly with higher ed and pre-K. They support funding people directly when it comes to every other, healthcare or groceries, but they don't support it for K through 12 for whatever reason, and it's all because of the status quo donates to their campaigns.
So she kept using the word scam, and I think it's a talking point that she was handed. I want to ask you about that, and then let's delve into Arizona and what you think is right about Arizona, if there's anything that you would improve regarding Arizona. Because Heidi, and the reason I bring up Heidi is she brought up Arizona as a reason why we should oppose Tennessee, which annoyed me. But we'll get into that in just a moment. Corey DeAngelis is our guest. It's Matt Murphy and the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's February at the world-famous clock store, and do I have a special for you? You know, we talk about McGill's world-famous clock store all the time. They are incredible. They have a large retail space. They have manufacturing division that ships nationwide. They also have their incredible Shoot 270 rooms. Let's talk about that for a moment, because, the world-famous clock store, they don't believe in shooting lanes because you don't live your life in lanes, right? You live your life in a manner that doesn't comport to a lane. So if you're training in a lane, you're not doing it the right way, if I may say so myself. We invite you to train in rooms, and these are big rooms that they can set up in multiple ways to help you understand how life happens and how you need to respond to it through your Second Amendment rights. Now, it is February, and that is Valentine's month, right? Valentine's Day is coming up. Toward that end, the group at the world-famous clock store offers an incredible Valentine's Day date opportunity. All February long, couples shoot for the price of one at shoot270.com. That's talking a private room, a private instructor, just you, your significant other, and your instructor right there in the room at shoot270.com. Go online and sign up today. Book a 2-person private shooting session at shoot270.com, and you pay for one person. Show up, have fun, and happy Valentine's Day from all of the gang at the Glock Store. Go to glockstore.com, right off of Elm Hill Pike on Air Lane Drive. It's the world-famous Glock Store. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, focusing in on the concepts of school choice in the state of Tennessee. The governor brought this up. Obviously, it was a major part of his State of the State address last night. It's a major push on the part of the governor and many in the halls of the General Assembly in the state of Tennessee this year. We're talking with Corey DeAngelis about it. It's important enough that Corey's in the state. And that means something because Corey is a national voice on the issue of school choice all across the United States. Toward that end, give me your analysis. You know, we had Heidi on. We mentioned that interview that did not go well. But she characterized Arizona as just an absolute failure, talking about, you know, just how awful how awful the outcomes were. I imagine that you have a slightly different perspective on the state of Arizona and what has happened as a result of school choice.
It's hilarious. Arizona is a success story for school choice, and the other side just freaking out because so many parents want to use it. They went from 10,000 students using their school choice program when it was limited in 2021 to in 2022 when they expanded it to every student being eligible. They went from 10,000 students to about 70,000 students using the initiative. Families want it. That's an argument for choice, not an argument against it. And, you know, she cited on your show that 70% of parents were already had their kids in private school. Well, that data was from when they first rolled it out. And that was after the school year already started. So those parents already had made their choice. So, of course, it's not going to be the public school parents. The latest data show that about half were already in the public schools. Some were already in the private school. And so it's a dumb argument either way. No one should have to pay twice. Families who were already in private school should benefit as well. And what about, like you responded, the other 30%? Do they not matter? Well, they should get a choice too.
And now we know it's half.
Yeah, the public schools have gotten better in response to competition in Arizona over time. They've had this ESA program for over a decade now, and the sky hasn't fallen. And bringing up Arizona is a good point too, because if Arizona can pass this, Republicans in Tennessee can too. Arizona had 1 seat GOP majorities in the House and the Senate, meaning every Republican voted for school choice in Arizona in 2022. This has become a GOP litmus test issue in places like Tennessee as well. You looked at the 2022 midterm elections in the primary in the House. 10 of the Republicans were actually endorsed or funded by the teachers union. 9 of them lost. It's become the political kiss of death to accept the support of the teachers unions in Tennessee and across the country because they become so politicized. They're about indoctrination. They're not about education. And in Arizona, you'll see some headlines that, if the program's going to cost $900 million based on how many families are going to use it. But those same kids cost twice as much in the government-run schools. The scholarship's only $7,000 a kid. The government-run schools spend about twice that amount per student. Mm-hmm. So if those same kids were in the government-run schools, they'd cost $1.8 billion. School choice actually saves taxpayer money, so they call it a cost, but they don't look at any of the financial benefits.
I don't know where liberals are getting this $800 million figure
they're
from.
They're doing Common Core math. The teachers union group in Arizona tried to put it onto the ballot. They tried to get signatures to stop the program after it passed the legislature in Arizona, and they needed like 120,000 signatures. They said they had like 130,000. They only had like 80,000 signatures. So they were doing Common Core math, or they just don't understand basic arithmetic, and I don't want them teaching our kids if that's the case.
Well, and even if the scholarship program, and I've been told, we've not seen the legislation, we've not seen the particulars, but I've been told by people who are drafting it that none of this money is coming out of the current education budget.
Exactly.
Secondarily, even if you maxed out the 20,000 scholarships at $7,000 per, it's $140 million. I don't know where she's getting $800 million from. I think this is a way to
everybody in the state's going to use it. They're telling on themselves. They really think that everybody's going to flee the public schools. No one's going to want to go there.
These public schools that are doing so great.
Yeah, if they're doing a good job, you should have nothing to worry about. And there are some good public schools in Tennessee, and they should welcome competition. They shouldn't fear it.
So for those who don't know, and I don't want to be guilty of treating you differently than Heidi, because Heidi kept referring to Arizona. I said, I don't care about Arizona, I care about Tennessee. You've not read the bill. The bill's yet to drop. However, what is the roadmap that we should expect based on your experience and based on the conversations that you've had with the legislators here in the state? What do you expect this to look at? How does it functionally work? For families listening to us, they've got no knowledge of what we're talking about. They got kids in a public school and they don't feel like the public school is performing like it should. Talk to those parents and explain what this program would do.
Well, first of all, if you like your public school, you can keep it. And you can take the full $13,000 or so that Tennessee spends on public schools per student, which an amount that has increased by 180% in real terms after adjusting for inflation since 1970. So there's plenty of money in the system itself. You can still take all that money to the public school. That option's still on the table. If not, for whatever reason, you can take that funding to something called an education savings account, and you can use that funding like a health savings account, for example, but you can use it only for approved education expenditures. Most people use it for private school tuition and fees. You can also use that for homeschool curriculum. You can use it for a private tutor. For special needs students, you can use it for educational therapies for those students. So any approved education expenditure. It's the purest form of funding students, not systems. It allows parents to have the maximum flexibility to customize their children's education. So the money follows the child. That's basically it.
And it maxes out at $7,000. You're understanding?
$7,000 per student. And think about it this way too: the public schools, I said, spend about $13,000. Even if the funding did come from the public school budget, I don't think that's going to happen. They would still get to keep thousands of dollars for students they're no longer educating. So on a per student basis, the public schools would actually be more well off.
No, it makes sense. The math makes sense. So if for example, the three of us in this room, our parents take us out of the system and utilize
some of that
they're
money.
Still getting $6,000 per on a $13,000 per student basis. They're still getting $6,000 that is now not being utilized by the kid. That remains in the public education system, even if it came out of the budgets, which lawmakers say that it's not going to.
That's a good deal for the public schools. I would argue. Imagine if you were shopping at Walmart and you said, "I don't want to go to Walmart anymore. I'm going to go to Trader Joe's or Whole Foods, whatever, some other grocery store." And Walmart got to keep half your grocery funding each week. They'd be cheering for that.
Walmart's like, "We're good."
The public schools should be thrilled they get to keep any of the money at all.
You're not going to drain our resources, but at the same time, we're going to keep some of the money. Yeah, that's all good. Tell me. You obviously are passionate about free market solutions. And obviously, this is not a pure free market system that we're talking about. Does it need to be? Should we not be striving for more open markets within the educational system? Because I think that's a solution that obviously the teachers union hate the idea because any competition is bad competition. I think we need to infuse more. I learned this when I was a young buck. John Stossel was a hero of mine, and he did a series of conversations about education in America, and he was always free market, giving examples overseas, particularly about how free markets work.
Yeah, it's not a pure free market solution, but it is the best solution that we have today. And as Thomas Sowell once famously said, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. This is the best solution we have in front of us. It's not a perfect one. It's not a silver bullet, but it's a step in the right direction in empowering parents to choose for their own kids. Monopolies are bad in any industry, including in education. If you, like you said, had to go to your grocery store just because you lived by it and they had empty shelves and expired food, you should be able to go somewhere else. It's the same thing with education. If your education is not meeting your needs for whatever reason, you need to be able to vote with your feet, because look at what happens today when parents show up at school board meetings to complain about the radical ideology in some public schools. Is they get their mics cut off for reading books that somehow is okay to read to little kids but not okay in a public forum for adults to talk about. They get their mics cut off. They were even labeled by the National School Board Association as they tried to get them labeled as domestic terrorists for protesting at school board meetings. That's not true accountability. The only real form of accountability is from the bottom up, being able to say, hey, if you don't listen to me, fine, but I'm going to go somewhere else and take my money with me.
Yeah, I always like to paraphrase William F. Buckley when we talk about our liberal friends, when he said, liberals are groups of people that claim to be tolerant of other viewpoints. They're shocked, dismayed, and disgusted when they find that there are some, right? They claim that they're going to be tolerant of your viewpoint until you bring it up, and then they want to shut it down.
Sure. That's
what they do. Questions from the super text line. Sally wants to know, if Tennessee's paying $13,000 per student, why shouldn't we give that all to the parents to follow the student?
Well, this is state-level funding, and the state-level portion happens to be around $7,000. These are passed at the state legislative level. So you can also pass legislation to allow the local funds to follow the student, too. That would probably require the school boards to buy in as well, which would be another step in another fight.
I think we just did this, but Daniel writes in from Murfreesboro, and says, Matt, help me understand exactly how a parent will benefit from the school choice bill. I'd like to have more clarity on how the money would exchange hands. I think you just described that. Would it be in the form of parents paying the tuition, then they get a tax exemption on a certain amount of income? So, he wants to know some specifics about how, and I don't think we can answer the question specifically about the state of Tennessee, but how have other states done this in terms of the exchange of money?
You can do it a couple of ways. You could do it through a tax credit where you get a tax benefit for writing off private school tuition fees. But I believe in most states we have a scholarship where the funding comes from the legislature, and then you can direct that funding to the school if you're choosing. So there's a couple of different ways it can happen. But those are the two.
Just paperwork would move the money. It would fund, like it would go directly to, for example, a private school.
The state to the private school. It's directed by the parent from that education savings account, just like a health savings account. It's not from the provider to the end to the producer of the service.
Right, sure.
The family gets to direct the funding.
And it's my understanding that the accreditation process that operates currently for homeschools and for private schools would remain in place. It doesn't change. And so if there's a fear that you'll have all these pop-ups, right? These phony baloney pop-up private schools just there to take advantage of the system. And I would suggest that we, watchdogs, will be ready to pounce on those phony private systems.
Yeah, we'll be ready, and parents will be ready. They know and care about their kids' educational needs far more than bureaucrats sitting in offices hundreds of miles away. This is a big deal for parents to choose a school, and that's one of the most important decisions they'll make for their children's lives. They're not going to say, I'm going to send my kid to some school that looks sketchy. They're going to send them to a good school. And if not, guess what? When a public school does a failing job, we just throw more money at the problem. Families can't vote with their feet to escape those failure factories in some cases. In the private sector, if there's a bad actor, they will be held accountable by people closing them down by going somewhere else.
Well, and you've brought this up on a couple of occasions, but I think it merits repeating that this will help public schools too. If public schools come at this with the right attitude, right? We have more of a competitive environment now. We need to redouble our efforts to do the best for the kids that we have in our system. And when they do that, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah, public schools up their game in response to competition. We've seen this everywhere. If those fear-mongering against school choice had the evidence, they would present it by now. But 26 of 29 studies find positive effects of school choice competition. I
promise you, when I go to the DMV, if I had the ability to go get my driver's license or my license plate across the street from another guy, the customer service that I have standing in front of me is going to improve.
That's right. Same thing with the post office. As FedEx and UPS have expanded, the post office in the government sector has gotten better too.
Let me get to William real quick. He's got a question on the phone lines. William out of Franklin, you're on with Corey DeAngelis and Matt Murphy. Good afternoon, William.
Good afternoon, guys. Yes, my question really is, you guys really think William F. Buckley would support this splitting of funds from the state to fund private schools? You realize think this is a conservative concept?
I'm just ready. I'm waiting for a question that's not rhetorical.
It's an honest to goodness question. It's fair. You really think
yes. I do believe that William F. Buckley would believe in freedom of choice and freedom of personal responsibility to make personal decisions for themselves, for their families, for their children. Yes.
It's also on the Republican Party platform. I mean, whose side do you want to be on? If it's a conservative issue or not? The conservatives in the state are supportive of it. You had the Democrats like Heidi Campbell coming in here and exercising school choice for her own families and then fighting against it for others. And it's also a taxpayer savings because the government schools spend about $13,000 per kid. This is only about $7,000 per student. So it's a fiscally conservative issue as well. In Arizona, this happened as well. They cost twice as much in the government schools as amount, and free market competition's a conservative principle as well. In my home state of Texas, we actually put school choice on the ballot, and we had 88% of primary voters in the Republican Party.
Yeah, William, go ahead. We'll give you the final word. Go ahead, William.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate it, and thanks for the information. I don't think Buckley would be supportive of the government funding a certain part of the market.
What are you? Well, forget Buckley for a minute. What are you supportive of, William?
What am I supportive of? Well, in Williamson County, we get about $3,500 per student. Not 7, not 13, 3.5. So
you get that from whom?
That's in the I mean, it's well known. That's been in school board meetings. That's from that we've had down here for.
It's from the government.
You're getting that from whom?
I don't know who it exactly is.
Taxpayer dollars.
Are you talking about local? Are you talking about Williamson County local funding from the local community?
No, from the state.
From the state
that Williamson County gets. It's not been like shot down during those meetings. Like that's been, it's a BAP. I mean, so I can't remember exactly what the acronym is, but.
So I think the point is that
it's money per student.
The funding is the funding is already there. This isn't an additional expense to the taxpayers. And so, like, if the status quo was that we didn't have any government involvement in educating your kids, that would be an increase in government. But the status quo is that the government controls the education of everybody's kids, and you have to go to the school just based on where you live, where they're spending an exorbitant amount of funding per student. This is just a step in the right direction towards more free enterprise and less government by breaking up the monopoly, allowing the funding to follow the student, putting the parents in charge and not the government. And so this isn't a new, taxpayer expense, and so it is a conservative principle.
Before we go, a personal note: congratulations on your baby.
Thank you.
I know you publicly announced that on social media some time ago that you and your wife are having a baby, and that's a wonderful thing. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks for pumped.
Now, is your child going to go to private school?
I think we're going to homeschool, not sending my kid to other people to raise them.
Corey, in all seriousness, thank you for everything that you've done on this matter. I understand that it's controversial. I understand that you understand the nature of the arena. We appreciate you digging into the arena today and always in the state of Tennessee and around the United States of America. And we'll have more conversations in the future. Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Matt. Hope to come back soon.
There's Corey DeAngelis, everyone. We'll be back in a moment. We've got another hour to go, and it's going to be a very special hour, and I'll tell you why coming up in just a moment. We're going to take a tilt away from politics right after this on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
2 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 59 degrees, partly cloudy, mostly sunny, though, right now in Nashville. And a nice weather week ahead. We'll tell you all about it. Forecast coming up in 2 minutes. The president today urged Republicans to ignore Donald Trump's call to kill the Senate border deal, but the Senate Republican leader says there's now no chance it'll pass. Sandy Field has details.
Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell saying they had a deal that his party wanted him to make.
I followed the instructions of my conference, who were insisting that we tackle this in October.
But despite the bipartisan Senate border deal, Donald Trump has told Republicans reject it.
And it's been made pretty clear to us by the Speaker that it will not become law.
Unclear what happens next.
Meta announced new measures this morning to alert users to pictures generated by artificial intelligence. It comes amid growing concerns about disinformation in this election year. The tech giant says the new feature will add a digital watermark to AI-generated pictures, though the new technology does not extend to deepfake audio or video posts. The announcement also follows Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg's apology to parents who blame social media for their children's deaths. That apology came during a tense Senate hearing with other social media executives. And a historic verdict. Jennifer Crumbley found guilty today on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter after giving her son the gun he used to carry out a mass shooting at his high school. Trevor Alt is outside court in Pontiac, Michigan, with more on the trial.
Certainly, though, those key moments were from Jennifer Crumbley on the stand. While she denied that culpability, said she did everything she could, she still said, looking back, she wouldn't do anything differently. And that is in the face of a number of red flags that the prosecution laid out. The buying the weapon for their son, which he used in the shooting, laughing off when he was caught the day before shooting, looking up ammunition in class. Jennifer Crumbley texted him, LOL, I'm not mad at you. You have to learn not to get caught.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. Let's talk about the weather. You know, that's always fun, talking about how hot it is, how cold it is, talking about turning on that AC when it gets to 70 and turning on that heater when it gets to 30 and turning on that AC when it gets to 65. We do that a lot this time of year. We do that a lot all around the year in the state of Tennessee, and you need Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling on your side when things go wrong. When things go south, they go south quickly when it comes to your air conditioning or your heater. And you need a name that you can trust, someone that you believe, and I know that they will not do this, will not take advantage of you. That's what it's all about. Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling, they understand that the expense is something that you don't want or need in your life, and you're probably a baller on a budget, so you don't need to pay for a new heater when you don't have to. Well, that's what they're here for. They'll offer you that second opinion, or better yet, first opinion, as to how long they can get you, the life of that unit, how much energy costs you're losing as a result, how much you could gain with a new unit. They'll diagnose it for you. They'll give you the education you need and inform you as to making a right decision for you and your family. And when it comes time, and there will be a time, they are a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric, an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. They can help. EfficientHVAC.net is the website. Join them there, EfficientHVAC.net, or 615-784-4424. 784-4424 for Efficient. Final hour of the radio show. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Well, not permanently. We'll be back tomorrow. Actually, I will not be here tomorrow, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. It is Tuesday. It is February the 6th. It is episode 506 of the Matt Murphy radio portion of the broadcast day, and we thank you for being here. We've still lots to do in the final hour before we hand off to Brian Wilson in the drive, and it will be a different kind of hour. I invite you to be a part of it. I invite you to call us up. But I have one favor to ask of you if you do decide to participate via the super text line or the phone lines, and I'll get to that favor in just a moment. After I tell you what those phone lines are, 615-737-9986. We give those numbers often and as quickly as possible just to keep you on your toes. 615-737-9986 is our number and our super text line. It is another Super Talk Live event coming up Super Tuesday, March 5 at the Nashville Palace. The Nashville Palace, I am told, is an incredible location right there around the Gaylord Opryland or Opry, what am I saying? Gaylord Opry Mills. Is it? It's the Gaylord Hotel.
Yes.
It's Opry Mills Mall.
Yes.
It's that area.
Yes.
It's where Opryland used to be.
Yes.
But not anymore.
Correct.
Because the stupid mall.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, one way or the other, across the street over there, near Scoreboards, there's Nashville Palace. And at Nashville Palace, a great facility, we will be in presence Super Tuesday, March 5. It is a free event. Free, free, free. If it's free, I'll have three. Free event for you, free event for me. We'll be broadcasting live, as opposed to dead, as the results come in on Super Tuesday. Join me, Matt Murphy, Dan Mandis, Chris Hand, Brian Wilson for a night of fun, food, frivolity, conversation, and watching the results. We anticipate a big night for our man, Donald Trump. Reserve your table online. You need to reserve your table online. This thing's going to pack out and pack out quickly. It will be ultimately, what we anticipate is that it will be a celebration. You know what? The last time we got together like this on an election night watch party was 2022. And I'll be the first to tell you, it kind of sucked. No, not because Mandis was there. I don't know why you would say that, Bell. I don't know why you would say that, but no, that's not why it sucked. It sucked because we didn't get the results. We thought we'd, have a big splash in the House. We'd take over the Senate. We didn't take over the Senate. We didn't get the splash in the House that we wanted. And I want a do-over. And we're getting a do-over on Super Tuesday because we know what's going to happen on Super Tuesday. Donald Trump's going to officially become your Republican nominee for president of the United States of America. Reserve your table online, and you're in the running for a massive hot chicken and barbecue tailgate package for 25 people. Whoa! All right, so not only is this a free event, not only can you come meet your favorite talk show hosts, and I'll be there too, you can also register to win this hot chicken and barbecue tailgate package for 25. Man, oh man.
That's a lot of food.
That's a lot of food. Action starts at 6 p.m. Details at 997WTN.com. That's 997WTN.com. Go ahead and register. We invite you to be there. Before I get into this next subject, a couple of pieces of political, and then we'll get personal. So here's Joe Biden defending himself on abortion. Here's Joe Biden defending himself on what he claims the MAGA Republicans believe. Okay, maybe not, because maybe this isn't going to do what I want it to do. Let's try this. Try it this way. Oh, well, maybe my webpage is just not going to work. Stand by for news.
I blame Joe.
I do too. Yeah, it's a series. I had a series of clips, and I'm sounding like Joe Biden now. I had a series of clips of Joe Biden making ridiculous gaffes over the past several days. Here's one of them. Let me see if it works this time around. It is, no, it's just not going to work. Okay. I don't know. I don't know, President Biden. It was Joe Biden saying that I love how Trump is saying Biden is for abortion on demand. Not true. That's not what Roe v. Wade said. It said 3 trimesters, which last time I checked was abortion on demand. Let's see if I can get this to work now.
Bragging about having overturned another basic freedom, Roe v. Wade. No, seriously. He's on television and is saying, I did this because the Supreme Court that I appointed. God love him. Well, Roe v. Wade is taking away a woman's right to choose. And by the way, now they're planning a national ban on the right to choose. They made it clear.
Not true, by the way.
If MAGA Republicans try to pass a national ban on the right to choose, I will veto it. And by the way,
Pushed his
Kamala's
teeth
doing
back
an
up.
incredible job going around the country making this case. And here's the deal, folks. Here's the deal.
Here's the deal.
The idea, if in fact you do what I hope you will do, get more registered people, more people registered to vote between now and the general election, elect all the Democratic congressmen and senators all across the country, give me a Senate and a House, I'm going to bring back Roe v. Wade.
Oh, he's going to bring back Roe v. Wade. Woo! Going to kill babies. We're going to kill babies, everybody.
I love how Trump is now saying Biden's for abortion on demand. Not true. That's not what Roe v. Wade said. They said there are 3 trimesters and how it worked. Let me close with this. Look.
Well, I'm going to close with you because you're annoying me. There's Joe Biden mumbling his way through what he believes is a cogent point, which turns out to not be so cogent after all. I'm sorry I brought it up. All right, so yeah, I know. So we're one big happy family, and I need to tell you something that happened to me earlier today, and I bring this up because I feel like many of you can identify with it, and I want you to know, as a big family, and I do consider us such, we're kind of all in this together. And I warned you at the beginning of the show that I was a little bit off my game today, although Corey DeAngelis did a great job. I thought the Afton Ben conversation went as well as was to be expected as well. But I want to tell you why I'm off my game and why I will be out tomorrow. And I wrote some of this down so that I didn't get emotional about it, because I don't want to get emotional about it. Many of you who have had the opportunity to listen to me over the last 2+ years that we've been a part of the Nashville family on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, you know that my wife and I have never been blessed with children. We do have 3 dogs, which we consider our 3 children. And many people like us who have never been blessed with kids, or if you don't have that part of your life, or even if you do have kids, dogs are just different, or your pets are just different in as much as you receive that complete and unconditional level of love that you really don't get anywhere else. It's unlike anything else, frankly, that I've experienced in my life. And for you dog lovers out there, specifically you dog lovers, I know cat lovers are out there too, but you dog lovers, cat lovers, pet lovers, I think you know what I'm talking about, especially with man's best friend. And so I want to tell you a little story that's impacting me quite a bit emotionally. And this is all I ask of you over the last 45 minutes of the show, that if you feel compelled to respond, I ask that you don't. I appreciate it, first and foremost. I love every single one of you for your compassion and your love back. And I so appreciate any sort of condolences you might offer. But instead of that, I just want you to tell me about your buddy, your friend, your companion. Just tell me, living or dead, their name, and how old they are. That's it. And anything else you want to say about them. Anything else you want to say about them. Just offer me that buddy in your life, that friend in your life that my story is going to remind you of. Just offer that up to me at the Super Talk text line, or you can email me or find me on Twitter or social media. Yes, Bell?
You brought up a really poignant comment yesterday, which I was thinking about last night, that, you know, if you have kids, any parent would never want to have to bury their child. The life is sort of designed so that the children bury their parents.
Yes.
But if you get a pet, which becomes part of your family, you function under the assumption that, you know, at some point you're going to have to bury your pet.
Yes, and that
makes it so difficult.
It's an incredible point, and it's one that I'm about to make at the end of this story, because you're exactly right. And so this is the story I'm going to tell you. And, Belle, I'm already going to warn you, I might be blowing the break. I don't know. The title of the story is Henry Died. In the end, we fed Henry by hand. For whatever reason, physical or mental, I don't know, he had stopped wanting to eat out of his bowl, or any container for that matter. He was never much of a good eater anyway. Throughout the 11 years that we had him, sometimes randomly, he would go a day, even 2 days, and wouldn't touch his food. You'd hand him his food, you'd mix it up, you'd put gravy in there, you do whatever you want to do, and he's not touching it. But he would always come back eventually to his food, and he would always eat until lately. And so in the end, we fed him by hand. And it wasn't dog food that we were feeding by hand either, by the way. Those days were gone. My boy might have started his life out on a chain before we knew him, before we caught him, before we rescued him, eating Old Roy or whatever they threw out as scraps. But he had graduated a long time ago to those $60 bag dog food from the fancy dog food places. I mean, he's eating more expensive food than I eat. So we had long graduated to the fancy stuff. Well, toward the end, he was turning up his nose at all of that. And he started getting skinnier and skinnier, especially on his hindquarters and his back end. I mean, his ribs start showing. And so we started cooking eggs for him. Scrambled eggs. Somebody recommended, hey, you maybe try scrambled eggs. He might eat some scrambled eggs. So we did. And then he turned his nose up at scrambled eggs, and we watch him get skinnier and skinnier, and he starved himself to death. So here we come with the rice, and then we joined the rice with some chicken, and then some chicken and rice, and then here we are. We went to Sam's Club specifically for some rotisserie chicken so we could put the rotisserie chicken in with the rice, and then some packaged turkey, and then ham. Ham by the slice, baby. By hand. He would eat it. So you fed it to him. Anything that he would eat, we gave him. And then he started turning that down too. And you look down and you see the bony ribs, and you look down and you see the skinniness, and you're holding a bowl out with ham in it or turkey in it or chicken and rice in it, and he looks at the bowl and you're like, buddy, you got to be hungry. And he just turns away. So you take the food out of the bowl and you put it in your hand. And you feed him by hand. That gets him. He can't resist that, you see, because the smell of that chicken or that ham or that turkey combined with the smell of your hand is important. And so he eats. So in the end, we just fed him by hand. Literally out of our hands. And then he wouldn't even eat that. I would like to say that I never questioned it, but I did. I mean, at one point, I'm sitting there and I'm in the floor and I'm feeding my dog by hand. Like taking moist, and Erica did it too, taking moist chicken and rice and putting it in the palm of your hand and putting it under his nose, and he'd pull his nose away and he'd pull his nose, and then eventually he'd sniff your hand and he would eat it. And at some point, I'm like, what am I doing? What am I even doing here? How did it ever come to this? And the answer was as instantaneous as the thought. that had occurred to me. What the heck am I doing? The answer came to me as quickly as the question came to me. And I don't know what it is about the bond between a pet and an owner. I think it is different than any other relationship, particularly that of a dog. Although, I mean, I don't besmirch you cat owners in all of this. I know that they are special too. I don't know what it is about that bond. I don't know what it is that creates the dynamic by which it would be perfectly normal for me to accept the idea that for the rest of this dog's life, I'm going to feed him out of the palm of my hand and will give him any food he wants so long as he eats. I don't know what it is about that bond. I wish I did. I wish I could create it. I wish I could sell it. I would be a multimillionaire if I could sell it. Because as Bell said at the beginning, it is something so powerful that we go into it knowing the pain that's going to come at the other end. We understand the best case scenario is we're going to experience the most unimaginable pain that you can possibly experience. But you do it anyway. And I think the lesson learned is that, and the wonderful unconditional love that you get back from your dog teaches us something much more broad. And that is that life is not about the pain. Life is about the experience. Life is not necessarily about how it ends or how it begins. And John Henry is a great example of that. Because sadly, he wasted away to the point that we said goodbye to him this morning. And he didn't start all that good either. He spent the first year or so of his life on a chain, almost 2 years on a chain. So the start was pretty crappy, and the end was no good for us, but boy, that big old slice in the middle is something else, isn't it? I strongly believe that regardless of one's faith, that we live on forever, that we are infinite in the sense that we have the ability to impact the lives of other people. We live on forever in the people whose hearts we touch and whose lives we impact. And then as they absorb a part of us in them, they pass that along into infinity. And so, in that way, John Henry will never die. But he did. This morning. I hope that you find the love in your life that you can find in a dog. We'll be back in just a moment. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
A verdict in the historic Michigan shooter trial, a huge Honda recall, and storms in California. Those stories 30 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock. Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Mr. Maury. Oh, you haven't cried yet, people. You haven't cried yet. I have something special after Mac Maury's news that'll really make you caterwaul. I had to jump out of this segment because I was about to lose my ever-loving mind. So I apologize for that. And I had to get away from it for a second, but I have to finish this up. I'm going to finish this up, and then we're going to talk about your dogs and your animals for the rest of the show. And we're going to commiserate together, and we're going to love, and we're going to hug our pooches, our four-leggers. I always say I love dogs more than I love human beings, and if you want to know why, it's because they deserve it. It is an unconditional love and loyalty that we don't get back from human beings. It is different. It is different than your marriage. It is different than your parental relationship. It is different than your child relationship. It's just different. I'm not saying it's better. I'm not saying it's superior. In fact, many of us would make the argument that it's obviously not, because you're not dealing with another human being. It is different because it is unconditional. There is a great comic bit. My favorite comedian is Norm Macdonald. And Norm Macdonald does a great bit about Hitler's dog. And he's like, yeah, Hitler's dog, he's like, boy, I love that Hitler. Hey, Hitler's great. Isn't Hitler great? Like, the commentary, and he does it intentionally, obviously. Yeah. He picks the worst human being on planet Earth ever to demonstrate that a dog's love, all a dog knows is how much he loves you. Yeah. I love you. I love that Hitler. It's a great bit. Yeah. But let me just, I'm going to finish up this. I'm going to go to Mac Maury's news, and then I'll really make you cry on the other side. Many of us are people of faith, and many of us have faith that we understand what happens in the next life. And I got to tell you, I just bet there's a heaven with pets in it. I have to believe that. Otherwise, I'd drive myself insane. There has to be, because I think God understands unconditional love better than any of us humans, and I can't imagine that he or she, in his or her infinite wisdom, would take that undying, unconditional love that he has for us and put it in an animal that we don't get to see anymore. I don't think that's the way that it works. We are largely, we come into this life largely alone, and obviously absent our interpersonal connections. This life journey, there's only one of you that goes on every step of your journey with you, and that's you, right? So here we are, stumbling and bumbling our way through the darkness, and trying to figure it all out. And you see a wagging tail, and then it makes all the sense in the world. When you come home and you've had your worst day, the dog says, I'll come with you. Let's get to the news, and then I'll really make you cry on the other side of the news. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
2:33. I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 60 degrees right now in Nashville. Got a weather forecast coming up in 2 minutes. A verdict in the Michigan trial of Jennifer Crumbly, charged in connection to her son's deadly school shooting. Here's Derek Dennis.
Jennifer Crumbly sat emotionless as the guilty verdict against her was read.
We find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
She's the mother of 17-year-old Ethan Crumbly, who opened fire inside Oxford High School in suburban Detroit in 2021, killing 4 students. Crumbly's case is the first time a parent has been charged and now convicted related to their child carrying out a mass shooting. The jury finding Jennifer Crumbly was grossly negligent in caring for her son and failed in her duty as a parent. She faces up to 15 years in prison when she's sentenced in April.
Vehicle recall. Honda is recalling more than 750,000 vehicles in the U.S. because a faulty sensor may cause the front passenger airbags to inflate when they're not supposed to. The recall covers certain Honda Pilot, Accord, Civic, Sedan, HR-V, and Odyssey models from the 2020 through 2022 model years, as well as the 2020 Fit and Civic Coupe. Also included are 2021 and 2022 Civic hatchbacks, the 21 Civic Type R and Insight, the 2020 and 21 CR-V, CR-V Hybrid, Passport, Ridgeline, and Accord Hybrid. A bunch of Honda recalls. And that extreme storm that's been pounding Southern California is finally heading east after sitting over Los Angeles since Sunday. It's leaving danger in its path, says Alex Stone in L.A.
Even though the rain is moving out, rivers are full and raging, the ground is saturated, and there's a high danger of mudslides. L.A. Fire Chief Kristen Crowley warning.
Do not let your guard down. We advise residents to exercise caution if they must venture out.
A few more days of isolated heavy rain will continue to cause some problems, but the widespread heavy rain is ending.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, friends, it's February. American Heart Month is February. American Heart Month reminds us the staggering statistics that heart disease kills 1 in every 5 people in the United States of America. At least it did in 2021. We want to prevent that, folks. It's also the month of love and lovers. Valentine's Day is in February. So with that in mind, Kraft Body Scan has an incredible special for you. To celebrate American Heart Month and to celebrate Valentine's Day, they're offering a unique and exclusive deal. They're discounting the incredible discount that they've already placed on their incredible heart and lung scan. Normally, I mean, we've been discounting this thing to $149 for a couple of months now, just to introduce you to Kraft Body Scan and to CT scans more generally and preventative maintenance of your body to get to know what's going on inside of your body. Well, this is a value of almost $3,000, folks, and right now, $99 is what they're going to charge you for a couple's heart and lung scan. That's incredible, but it is real, and it's a Kraft Body Scan. No obligation. No, nothing to hook you. They just want to see you. They want to tell you about the process. They want to put you through the process with you and your loved one for $99. It's incredible, and you need to take action because it's happening this month only. $99. Call today for an appointment today. 615-436-1000, 436-1000 for our friends at Kraft Body Scan online, craftbodyscan.com. The Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief located in Franklin, and they want to see you. In 2024, do you still have pains that ail you? Do you still have joints that hurt? Maybe it's your elbow, your hips, your neck, your shoulders, your lower back, your buttocks, whatever it might be. They can assist you in alleviating that pain without the need to pop pills and without the need to consider surgery. It is all available to you at the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. Go see these guys. I'm telling you, folks, they alleviated my pain. I saw them very soon after I came to Nashville. And I had lower back pain that existed and was a constant reminder of some of the abuse that I did to my lower back in my earlier years. Now I don't have that constant reminder. It'll always be there, and I'll always need treatment. But they eliminated spinal compression that I had in my upper neck completely. I don't have the pain anymore that I had every single day of my life. Thank you to the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. Your call is next. You could be next. You could tell me the story of how you're pain-free without having to constantly pop pills. Make the call that so many others have made to the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. 615-882-4838. 882-4838. It's the Dr. Gill Center. Call today. So many of you, by the way, Super Talk 99.7 WTN, so many of you are telling me your dogs, God bless you. It's awesome. It is absolutely awesome. Whiskey Girl, found on the streets at 10 months, Redbone hound dog. 14 years, was the love of our life. I still cry for her. Lab Pit, rescued from a dog fight at 2 years old. After loving him back to health, he looked at us with eyes that said, I won the lottery. And so did we. Yeah, my good friend, my good buddy, Jay St. Clair, I told him this morning about losing John Henry this morning, and he said, boy, he hit a home run when you guys adopted him, and he had no idea. For those that don't know, real quick, the backstory, and then I'll get to telephone calls. John Henry was on a chain when we found him. When my dad was in ill health, and I was visiting my father in Columbus, Georgia, and we had a dog. We had a 15-year-old that, was on his last legs. We've been through this in the past with Hody. And so we were not in the market for a new dog, but I kept seeing this dog that was chained to a tree in the backyard and near my dad's house. And I finally had enough of it. And Erica and I were about to go on a vacation. We were going to Las Vegas. It was around Christmas time. I went to visit my dad. Once again, he's in poor health. And I said to the owner, look, when I come back, I didn't ask. I told him, when I come back, I'm coming to get the dog. And they're like, what? No, you can't have this dog. And I'm like, no, it'll be fine. This is the way I did it. I was like, no, it'll be good. It'll be fine. And I knew what I was getting into because this was a wild child and he'd been chained to a tree and he had not lost his fighting spirit. And I saw that, and he was such a beautiful, beautiful creature. And I told Erica that we were going to foster this guy and we're going to find him a home. We weren't going to keep him. We're going to foster him. We're going to find him a home. He's maybe 2 years old. I don't really know. And my brother, thank you to Brian, my brother, for assisting me in getting Henry to our place in Helena, Alabama. He was not named Henry then. He was named something stupid. Doesn't matter. We were fostering him, and we fixed him up. He didn't even have a collar on. He just had a chain wrapped around his neck with a bolt in the chain, which infuriates me to this moment. But so we got him to our place. He was skinny. And we fed him up and we healed him up and we got him good. We kept him in the basement open to the backyard because we couldn't keep him with Hody because Hody was so old and he was so wild. And we had a number of people come by that wanted to adopt him. And when they saw him, he's big. Henry was at his biggest about 120 pounds, tall, half Great Dane. He's half Great. And so 13 years, he's 13 and a half. And for a Great Dane, that's just an incredible life. But I believe God, I don't want to get choked up. I believe God gave us those extra years because he didn't have the 2 years to begin with. And anyway, my brother helped get him home after about 3 weeks of trying to, three weeks, maybe a month, trying to find him a place, trying to foster him, using my radio show to do it and whatnot. I had several people come over to the house. They said, no, he's bigger than we thought he was. That's too big for us. And I come home one day, and I open up the door from the garage into the downstairs, into the basement area, and Erica's laying on the floor with the dog, and she looks up at me, and I wanted to keep him from the beginning. I was begging to keep him from the beginning, but Erica was the voice of reason, so we can't do that. He's too big. He's too wild. We need a break. Hody was 15. He was once again on his last legs. How would we do that? And she looks at me and she says, I think he should be named John Henry because he's too big for one name. And I said, son of a bitch, we got a dog. Yes! That's what I said. I'm sorry for the curse, but it's literally what I said. And so there you go. I'm going to make you cry in a minute. But before I do, Bethany is with us. Hey, it's Bethany Van Meter. Where's River, Bethany? I want to hug River's neck.
I know. He's on the couch, as he should be. And I just wanted to call in and hopefully not cry here, but I probably will. So I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
You're sweet.
But I'm so grateful that, people, guys, and so many others are able to give them the lives they deserve. So we're praying for you guys, and I can't keep it together.
Thank you.
So
You're
sorry
sweet.
about that, but
You're sweet. Don't upset River. River doesn't know why you're crying.
He doesn't. You're right.
Thank you, Bethany.
You're right.
You're very sweet.
I just wanted to call in and let y'all know we're praying for you.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very sweet of Bethany. Yeah, I mean, it's the deal. Once again, I go back to this. It's the arrangement that we enter into. It's the best case scenario. The bond is so great. The love is so great. If you don't know it, get to know it, and your life will be better for it. This is the payoff. You experience undying and unconditional love, and you think, what have I done to deserve this? What have I possibly done to deserve this? I'm not worthy of the affection that this animal is giving me. And you don't realize until you go through it, there's a price to be paid. You have to pay it on the back end. James is in Shelbyville. Oh, no, wait, James. I don't want to talk to James. Is James there for corporate tax? I don't want to talk about corporate tax right now. Jason's in Clarksville. Hey, Jason.
Hey, man. I want to tell you about my beau.
Let's do it.
He came to us, stinky basset hound, don't know how old he was, heartworms, and he adopted us. No matter what we did, he was a basset hound. He always stunk. Loved to bark at the cats, always raising hell around the house. And Sunday night, I laid on the floor at the vet's and cried. I'm 48 years old, as we had to put him to sleep because he had, as a basset hound does, they have back problems.
Yeah.
But Bo also had heart problems. He couldn't have surgery, they said. He wouldn't live through it. He was so stinky, but God, I love him.
That's awesome. Yes.
He was the best.
How old was Bo?
The vet told us he was probably about 12 or 13.
Did you name him after?
That's what, and that's what my wife called him. Monday my boy went to school, inviting kids to the house over the weekend for a funeral.
I always said that. Well, it's very sweet. Jason, I always said that if I had a basset hound, I'd name him Fred after the Basset and Smokey and the Bandit. Look, I'm quickly running out of time, and God bless you, Tim and Don and John and Guy and Woodrow and anybody else that's trying to call in. But I want to share this with you. If you've never heard it, if you've heard it, then you'll know immediately what we're doing, and you'll start crying immediately. If you've never heard it, Jimmy Stewart made an appearance in 1981 on Johnny Carson's television show. Jimmy Stewart was obviously, up in years. He was in his 70s at the time. And I don't know, he was there to promote a movie or something or another. But he also had a heavy heart, and he asked Johnny if it was okay if he read a poem to him. This is going to run a little long, and tell Brian I'm sorry. It's about 4 minutes. But if I don't get back to say bye to you, I'm sorry for that. but I want to leave you with this. This is in honor of my dog, John Henry. It's Jimmy Stewart, and it's a poem called Bo.
I just thought I'd write a poem. You want to hear
Please,
it?
oh yes.
You want to hear it? Now this, well,
They could always start the wedding late, I guess.
Now the title of it is Bo. That's the name of the dog. He never came to me when I would call unless I had a tennis ball, or he felt like it. But mostly he didn't come at all. When he was young, he never learned to heel or sit or stay. He did things his way. Discipline was not his bag, but when you were with him, things sure didn't drag. He'd dig up a rose bush just to spite me, and when I'd grab him, he'd turn and bite me. He bit lots of folks from day to day. The delivery boy was his favorite prey. The gas man wouldn't read our meter. He said we owned a real man-eater. He set the house on fire, but the story's long to tell. Suffice to say that he survived and the house survived as well. And on evening walks, and Gloria took him, he was always first out the door. The old one and I brought up the rear because our bones were sore. And he'd charge up the street with Mom hanging on. What a beautiful pair they were. And if it was still light and the tourists were out, they created a bit of a stir. But every once in a while, he'd stop in his tracks and with a frown on his face, look around. It was just to make sure that the old one was there to follow him where he was bound. We're early to bedders in our house. I guess I'm the first to retire. And as I'd leave the room, he'd look at me and get up from his place by the fire. He knew where the tennis balls were upstairs, and I'd give him one for a while, and he'd push it under the bed with his nose, and I'd dig it out with a smile. But before very long, he'd tire the ball, and he'd be asleep in his corner in no time at all. And there were nights when I'd feel him climb upon our bed and lie between us, and I'd pat his head. And there were nights when I'd feel this stare, and I'd wake up and he'd be sitting there, and I'd reach out to stroke his hair, and sometimes I'd feel him sigh, and I think I know the reason why. He'd wake up at night and he would have this fear of the dark, of life, of lots of things, and he'd be glad to have me near. And now he's dead. And there are nights when I think I feel him climb upon her bed and lie between us, and I pat his head. And there are nights when I think I feel that stare, and I reach out my hand to stroke his hair, and he's not there. Oh, how I wish that wasn't so. I'll always love a dog named Bo.
Love you, John Henry. We'll talk to you soon, folks. I'm out tomorrow, back on Thursday. Brian Wilson up next with The Drive.